The General was driving his Model Y to work with the full self-driving beta active when the driver of a white Model Y in front of him slammed on the brakes. FSD had plenty of distance and quickly reacted, slowing down to avoid a collision. Sadly, the driver of a red Model 3 following the General swerved into the express lane and collided with a silver Model S. Both of those vehicles then made contact with the General's Model Y. Incredibly, nobody was harmed, even after the Model 3 was sent airborne. Teslas really are built like tanks. Firefighters and law enforcement responded to the scene. The General's Model Y was still drivable, so the police released him after taking his statement and a copy of his Teslacam footage. The officer was pleased with the video and told the General it would make his job easier. That definitely seems to be the case, as the collision report was completed only 2 days later. The report stated the driver of the red Model 3 was fully responsible after making an unsafe lane change. Apparently, the driver had immediately admitted to his mistake and accepted liability. The footage from the white Model Y in front of the General has already been widely spread on the internet, but we haven't been able to get a hold of the owner. If we can get in contact with any of the other Tesla owners, we'll update this story with their footage in a future episode. Until then, let's continue. Panos was driving on Highway 54 in Florida when, all of a sudden, a dump truck pit maneuvered a car across the oncoming traffic lanes. Seeing them headed toward him, Panos prayed the impact wouldn't be too bad while hitting his brakes. He tried to swerve left, but a red Hyundai was in the way. The driver of the F-250 behind Panos wasn't paying attention and didn't notice Panos braking until the last second. He tried to pass Panos on the right, but sadly, that sent him right into the oncoming vehicle. A fire truck was right behind Panos, and the firefighters immediately set to work helping the victims. Thankfully, no serious injuries were reported. Panos was watching his rearview mirror the whole time, worried the F-250 might slam into him. He's thankful he was spared and that no additional vehicles became involved. Jacob was on his way to pick up some fried chicken for a Friendsgiving party when he turned a little wide into a parking lot. Yes, he admits this was his fault and clipped the side of a Chevy Colorado. Jacob pulled over and discovered the occupants of the Chevy were 3 teenagers. He told us the 2 guys and a girl began threatening Jacob and trying to intimidate him into paying for the damage in cash. Jacob told us he tried to trade insurance information with them, but they weren't interested. A couple of minutes later, he saw them taking their stuff from the truck before getting into another car and leaving the truck behind. That made this a hit and run. Jacob called the police, and it turned out the truck had been reported stolen. He told us the teenage girl was a runaway who had taken the truck from her grandmother without permission. Jacob had no idea who the guys were, and he later learned the girl ended up being taken to the hospital for injuries not related to the collision. He told us it was a pretty hectic story. Fixing Jacob's Tesla took a month and $16,000 US. Mithul was driving down Lake Street, a one-way with 2 lanes and parallel parking on both sides. As he began going around a Jeep that had stopped in the right lane, another car pulled out of a parking spot and hit his left quarter panel. The driver of the car jumped out and started yelling that the collision was Mithul's fault since he should have seen her pulling out during his lane change. Mithul thinks it was her fault since she crossed a solid white line without yielding to traffic in the travel lanes. Mithul called the police and they responded to generate a report, but the other driver was a delivery driver and said she had to leave to make a delivery. She left just before the cops arrived. Mithul filed an insurance claim with Tesla Insurance and has an appointment at the Tesla Collision Center to get a repair estimate, but he still hopes the other driver's insurance provider will accept responsibility. Kyle was driving his Model Y down a highway in Salt Lake City when a driver in front of him was tailgating other vehicles and swerving between lanes. When another driver was merging into the same lane as the tailgater, their reaction was to jerk to the left, causing them to lose control and spin out. Who could have guessed that a dangerous driver would do something like that? Thankfully, they didn't collide with anything, so they were able to continue after getting turned back around. Erin was on her way home from New York to Richmond, and it rained during the entire 8-hour drive. She told us she did her best to maintain a safe following distance given the concerning amount of water on the highway. She was in the middle of passing a large truck when it merged into the exit lane, opening up the travel lane, but before she could merge, she noticed a Fiat driver quickly passing her in the travel lane instead of waiting for her to get out of the passing lane. As soon as they flew past her, they tried to cut in front of her and lost control. Thankfully, autopilot's speed had been limited due to poor visibility, so she was able to avoid what felt like an inevitable collision. Erin kept going and called her husband so he could calm her down. He pointed out that she'd finally captured her own Wham Bam clip, and that's a big deal. While she has the chance, Erin wants to shout out her son Bobby. Andy was turning right when a black Jeep Grand Cherokee cut him off from the left. Andy let the Jeep go, thinking maybe the driver was in a hurry or hadn't had a chance to reach the highway on-ramp. Apparently something else was up because the Jeep driver then brake-checked Andy repeatedly. Andy tried to go around him, but he kept moving to block his overtake. At this point, Andy began worrying that the Jeep driver might have been trying to make him stop so he could carjack him, so he did his best to escape the situation. He also thought the Jeep driver might have been trying to get Andy to rear-end his Jeep as part of an insurance fraud ploy. Thankfully, the Jeep driver slowed down and Andy was able to pull away. Later, he checked his Teslacam footage to see if he'd had any previous interactions with the Jeep driver, but it seems like he chose to bully Andy for no reason. Justin was driving home after work when a Honda CR-V crossed 3 lanes of traffic and was headed straight for him. Justin had little time to react, and with traffic in the left lane, he had no choice but to get hit by the Honda head-on. Justin told us the FSD beta wasn't active at the time, but he remembers hearing the collision warning and feeling his car steer right to try to avoid the collision. The right and rear camera angles make the evasive movement a little easier to see. Bystanders checked on Justin after he got out of his car, making sure he was okay while he waited for the police. He never did interact with the other driver, so he doesn't know what caused the collision. Thankfully, the other driver took full responsibility. Justin's Tesla was totaled, and he ordered a Model 3 Performance to replace it. It only took 17 days for it to be delivered. Josh was heading to a coffee and cars event in San Clemente, California when he spotted what was almost an epic drift. A BMW driver punched the gas too hard and spun out. Thankfully, they didn't hit anything or anyone during this stunt attempt. Michael and his family were walking back to their car when Michael pulled out his phone to unlock the door. While looking down, he ran into an exit sign. He told us he's not very tall, so he thinks this is the sign's fault. It seems like his family was definitely entertained by the situation. Michael is actually one of our Patreon supporters and the creator of the Tesla Box device, which streams Teslacam and Sentry Mode footage to the cloud automatically. Even though this wasn't saved by his Tesla as a Sentry Mode event, he was able to access the files remotely from the cloud. Let us know if you want more info about the Tesla Box, and maybe we can put together some kind of interview with Michael. Derek was driving his Model Y in San Jose, California when he got a front row seat to the battle of the BMWs. It all started when 2 older BMWs zipped past him. One of them, a Z4, got in front of the other, a 5 Series. The driver of the 5 Series must have felt challenged because he lunged into the right lane and zipped past the Z4 and another car before taking back the lead position. At the next red light, both BMW drivers opened their doors and screamed at each other. They then closed their doors and went on with their day as if this was all completely normal and reasonable. I guess they both really needed to vent some pressure. Josh was headed to pick up dinner for his family with his brother-in-law in the passenger seat. Less than 20 seconds after leaving his sister's driveway, he pulled up to a stop sign at a T intersection. While he was stopped, a Cadillac careened into the side of his Model 3. At first, the Cadillac driver just kept going, but when Josh honked at her, she backed up and asked him why. She was surprised when Josh told her she'd hit his car. While they exchanged information, Josh asked her why she hadn't seen him, and she claimed that the sun had been in her eyes. Repairs took a month and a half, and the insurance provider paid almost $3,500 US. This is actually Josh's second submission to our channels. He also sent us the Dashcam video from when his Nissan Leaf was shoved into a gas station that we featured back in Dashcam Stories number 55. Kulyinder was headed straight through an intersection, and as it turned yellow, he decided it wasn't safe for him to stop on the slippery road with another car behind him. After deciding to continue through the yellow light, an oncoming vehicle turning left ran into the side of his Model Y. Thankfully, nobody was injured in the collision. The drivers exchanged insurance information before Kulyinder called a tow truck since his Tesla had been rendered undrivable by the impact. When Kulyinder filed an insurance claim, he found out the other driver had blamed the collision on him. What do you think? Who caused this collision? The insurance companies are still completing their investigations, so comment below what you think the result will be. We'll let you know what happens in a future episode, and we'll pick one random correct guesser and send them a Wham Bam sticker. That reminds me, we need to announce the winner of the Dashcam giveaway from episode 234. The winner of this brand new VIOFO VS1 Dashcam is Matt, who drives this 2016 Ram 1500 Laramie Crew Cab. Congratulations, Matt, and enjoy the new Dashcam. As Dakar approached a traffic light that was turning yellow, he slowed down, but the driver of a Toyota Corolla sped past him and tried to make the light. The light was red as the Corolla entered the intersection and crashed straight into an oncoming SUV that was turning left. Dakar stopped and called the police. He gave copies of his Teslacam footage to both drivers, and he offered it to the police as well. Logic was driving through Midland, North Carolina when he noticed a garbage truck. The truck is supposed to pick up garbage cans and dump the trash into the truck, but this particular garbage truck did something a little different. Did you see that? It happens quickly. If you blink, you'll miss it. Before we go, we need to shout out our Patreon supporters. To join this list of people who keep the Wham Bam shows on the road, visit our Patreon campaign using the link below.